weird. Like I have to like lean in to talk into it.
Yeah.
Because I'm not using a boom stand. I'm using this.
That's what I've got going on too. I was sitting
wish
here.
it were here and not here.
Dave will join us at some point.
It's all right. Gives me time to look over my notes.
Okay.
So we're starting the pod and then he'll join us.
Yeah. Whenever you can. All right. Want to clap?
We're starting right now?
Oh, wait. What? Yeah. I said we'd start without him.
Oh. We're just going to like kill time? We're
going to do the whole like what's new. And
okay, fine.
When he gets here, we'll jump into sermon stuff.
All right, let's do it.
I got a meeting at like 1 that I've already told them I'm not going to be on time to.
Oh my goodness.
Surely will not.
All right.
Okay, here we go.
Recording. Okay.
Oh, I'm not. Quick time.
Can you hear the bunnies? Okay, good.
I can hear an HVAC system.
Yeah, that's in here.
Okay, great. All right, I'm ready.
Okay.
1, 2, 3, clap.
All right. Here we go. Well, welcome to Between Sundays. I'm Tyler, and like a gummed up carburetor in a generator during a lack of electricity, I am bedeviled by stress. Luckily, Dave Rodriguez will be here to refocus me on kingdom-centered generosity. But before we wrap up the final week in our Tidying Up series, now that they've stockpiled their stockpiles just in case, let's welcome in our favorite American treasures that make me feel successful, secure, and satisfied. Marin and Barry, good day, guys.
Good day. Good day.
I agree.
Marin, you are
Barry
an American
Rod,
treasure.
You are an American treasure.
It's been a while, guys. I haven't seen you in like a month.
Well,
on this show, I see you every day, but
yeah,
on this show,
we hobbled along and found a way to do a pod.
Yeah. I tell you what, editing a podcast you're not a part of when there are recording problems, is a real treat. That's what I got to do last week or 2 weeks ago.
Sorry.
Awesome.
Yeah, it cut out like halfway through. It was
my favorite quote that is not a part of last week's podcast was, Tim kept dropping out. Barry forgot to hit record. They had to redo it. And once they realize, oh, shoot, Tim's gone again, Marin chimes in. She goes, "This is going to be a good one, Barry." This is going to be a good one. It was like, okay, thanks for the encouragement.
Oh, man. We were gone last week. Well,
yeah, we were
what's
gone.
new? We just got back from our lead team retreat last week.
We went hiking in the woods together.
We did. We hiked for a second and
bonding.
It was good. It was, thank you, friends of the pod, for praying. I know we had said before we left that we were praying that we would, hear the Spirit, that we would have unity. And I think that's what happened. We had a really, really good time. We got a lot of work done, really kind of shaping the future or the future direction for the next 6 to 9 months of Grace. But we also, spend time getting to know each other. It was great. I mean, obviously we've been talking weekly for years, but, even so, we went around and all took time to share our stories and ask questions. And I learned stuff about you guys I didn't know before. So it was great. It was a great time.
Apparently talking to each other once a week is not enough.
Yeah, that's not enough to make you genuinely friends.
Because there was a moment on the retreat where I was like, Marin, I feel like you could have given me a little bit more in we had to tell like life stories. I was like, I feel like
we had 15 minutes to tell our story.
More. I had to read too much into it. And she said, I'm not close enough to you to do that. And I said, I have talked to you every week. She's like, once a week about church. I'm like, oh, I guess that's not good enough for you. I talk to you more than I talk to anyone else in my life, except my wife.
Do you know how nervous I was about only having 15 minutes to tell my insane story?
Well,
my
you did
story
it in 13 minutes. I remember that.
No, did I?
Yeah, you finished early.
That's it. I'm done. We're like, we still have 2 minutes. You're like, nope, done.
Man.
Questions.
Y'all got the abridged version. But if there was one thing I was the most nervous about on that entire retreat, it was that moment.
You did fine.
Trying to fit everything into 15 minutes. But it was a really nice trip.
Yeah, we had a good time.
It was
and
great,
the food was amazing. Holy cow.
That's
Marcus
what really unified us.
And Marion, your food with the rice and I didn't eat the meat, obviously, that everybody was providing, so I didn't get to enjoy that. But holy cow.
The sides were
Marion made
good.
this Puerto Rican rice that she promised I could take home, and I have not been blessed with to this point. But
I will bring
she made this Puerto
rice.
Rican rice with like olives in it, and it was. I think about it. We've made chicken and Mexican rice since, and I've definitely judged it compared to your rice. Yeah, and it
you can't compare Mexican rice and Puerto Rican rice. Like they're not even similar.
And Marion, you shared with us your black salsa with the secret ingredient being, of course,
tomatoes.
Was it? She didn't tell us. She wouldn't tell us.
She won't tell us anything.
Trying to like catch her in it.
Guys, it took me 20 years to get that recipe. I'm not just going to give it out for free.
Yeah, so don't ask, friends of the pod.
Don't ask.
You're not going to get it.
There's no way you're ever going to hear about how she roasts the green peppers. Okay, no, it's not.
They spent the rest of the retreat trying to figure out how I make this salsa, but it's a salsa you can only find at one restaurant in Chicago, and I happen to know the guy with the recipe. So yeah,
it was good. It was good. Well, we ate well. Also, Dad came, and as he said in his sermon, he came and he cooked for us the third day, and that was delicious as well. It was like every meal was just more delicious than we could handle.
Yeah.
So
it was awesome.
It was great.
It was really great. The thing I love more than anything else in the world is gathering a group of loved ones around a table over a good board game. And we played exactly 0. I brought a whole bag of board games thinking I can play with my new friends and new team members. Nope. We didn't do that once. So
we played a game. Not once, but twice.
We played a lame game. It's fun.
It was a party game, so that's not Tyler's ideal of
not
fun.
My cup of tea. Dave Rodriguez has entered the chat.
And we are hearing a significant echo.
We got some. Do you have headphones, Dave? Okay.
So.
Oh. Oh no. Yeah. Okay.
I don't know. Yeah, it's an echo. I can hear it. I don't know.
Do we plan on ever going back to the pod room?
Yeah, as soon as everybody's vaccinated.
We're all vaccinated.
We are now.
You?
I'm half vax.
Yeah, I'm half vax.
I'll be fully next week.
Well, I don't want to go back to that room. I want to go to the video studio. We just have to set it up. So eventually. Anyways, what else is new? What's going on? Marion, how are you?
I am the proud mother of Indiana's newest licensed driver.
Hey-o.
Wow.
Desi actually overtook Jaden, huh?
Yeah, Desi finally made it.
No, she cooled off on the driving thing for a while there, but just this week, I don't know if it was because her brother was only a day away from getting his license, but just this week, she's back in the saddle. She's doing it.
Great.
She's all in. But no, Jaden got his license yesterday afternoon.
Congrats, Jaden.
Yeah, big time, man. Does he so is it a family shared car, or did you and Jed give him a car, or is he buying a car? Like what's his mode of transportation right now?
His grandma gave him, get this, great grandma's 4-door sedan.
Hell.
So he is riding in style. He got great grandma's car, which was then grandma's car, which is now his car.
And I bet it's probably got like 47 miles on it because they've
exactly.
In the garage waiting for Jed.
Hey, I feel safer about that car than I do about Jed. Jed had a Scion, a Toyota Scion. Mm-hmm. No disrespect to any Scion owners out there, but it's just a piece of aluminum, just full floating on four wheels.
Yeah,
That's
just
the other
like a
car we
metal
have. It's
box, literally.
It's like a go-kart,
Yeah.
you know, it'll get the kids to school and back. But yeah, I feel safer about the four-door.
Is he excited? Is he just like, whatever, now I'm doing this? I know you're excited because there's like grocery runs in store.
I am excited about that part, but I'm more nervous than anything else in the world.
You are?
Oh, absolutely. This is by far
Now
the
that it's
scariest chapter of parenting that I've ever encountered.
Yeah.
Because he drove to school this morning, but he drove Desi, like putting both my kids in the same car in the hands of a brand new driver.
Well, the good
Terrifying.
news is Desi's just going to snitch on him anytime he does something,
I hope so.
makes an illegal U-turn or runs a red light or something. Desi will let you know.
Yeah. I mean, he's been great. He drove us all the way to North Carolina or to Tennessee and back. He's been doing a ton of over the road driving. It's just all the little things like of the neighborhood driving that are, I probably feel better about him driving to Chicago on 65 than, you know, just all of the things you have to deal with driving locally.
Yeah. I tell you what, I thought I knew what I was doing in Carmel with the roundabouts, but going up Hazeldale,
goodness.
there are different rules for roundabouts almost on everyone. And there's tons of traffic or tons of construction on Keystone. So I started coming up Allisonville to Hazeldale. And every day this week, I've almost gotten into a car crash because I don't know how to manage the roundabouts. And people honk at me and I'm apologizing.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I don't envy learning how to drive right now in Carmel.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it used to
but
be-
we didn't
in
get a
our
chance
day,
to
it was so
celebrate last
simple.
night.
In our day, you just look up and you'd see a red light and you'd know it was time to stop. And now
Yeah.
it's
Yes.
yielding and eye contact. It's very confusing.
There's a lot
What
of
were your
estimation
guys'
involved.
first cars?
1994 Dodge Spirit.
What is that? Is that like a hatchback? You strike me
No.
as a hatchback kind of gal.
No, it was my grandma's car, which was then my brother's car, which was then my car.
Okay.
It was white and it was very, very boxy. Mm-hmm. And I didn't care because it was free and it got me from point A to point B.
Yeah.
I had a couple cars, like short term.
You're
I
a
had like
grown-up
this
boy.
old 1980s Saab that I drove around, a stick shift, and then it was
yeah.
like this really tiny little dinky pickup truck that I drove for a little bit. That was, I think, Dad's, and I kind of borrowed it for a while. And then I got the car that lasted me like all the way into college and stuff. And it was like a 91 Chevy Beretta Burgundy. It was classic. I still remember
I
how
remember
it smells. Like that vivid
Wasn't
smell.
that a convertible?
Of like, no,
My
it
brother
was
had a Beretta.
Definitely not.
It was a sports car though, yeah?
I don't know if what I drove could ever be considered a sports car. It was very old and very run down, and I ran it down even further. So
Yeah. My first car was a 2-door teal 1992 Saturn. And,
92.
within the first year of driving it, a garbage truck backed over top of me.
Don't say things like that to me right now.
Oh yeah, sorry. No, that didn't
No.
happen. That didn't happen.
No.
It wasn't my fault.
Oh my
Anyways.
goodness. I was like, text me when you get to school so I know you're okay.
I don't know what happened to Dave, but he just texted me.
yeah, he's gone.
Not working.
He's gone.
So, okay. So how does Jed handle this versus how you handle it? This sermon is perfect to talk about between the three of us because it's all about like the just in case and worrying and all that stuff, which you are a perpetual worrier.
Hoarder?
But how does Jed, is he too focused on Call of Duty right now to even know that Jaden has his license, or what is his state of mind right now?
I hear he's going to have to back away from video games a little bit because he's starting school up again.
Yes, he is. Praise the Lord, everybody. Yes,
Believe God.
He's going back to school. So yeah, that hasn't started yet, but I think, as far as I know, he's going back at some point this week. He thought he was going back last night, but I think he might have had his days crossed, but going for his master's. So we're really excited about that. And how does he feel about Jaden driving? I think I saw him shed a tear when little Jay drove away for the first time last night. He looked at me and he said, quote, "I'm feeling some kind of way about this." And that meant I'm feeling emotional. I think I'm going to cry.
Aw,
Wow.
good for him.
Looky there. And Dave Rodriguez has entered the chat, everybody.
Hey, what's up,
Welcome, Dave. Yeah, you're not going to be able to hear my sound effects this time, Dave, but
Okay, good to be here. Good to be here. Good to be
yeah,
back.
welcome. It's
Thank
been over a year.
Well, since I've been on the pod, yes, it has been.
Man, just catch us all up. What's been going on?
I bet that a lot of people would really be interested to hear about your business and what's happened since.
Yeah,
you
I
left
wanted to
Grace.
talk about that because last weekend when you preached, we put your name, Dave Rodriguez, founder of Destiny Works. So some people may not have any idea what that is. So give us the rundown of what you're doing these days.
Okay. Well, the idea of Destiny Works is that every single human being has a calling on their life, a summons on their life to in some way heal the part of the brokenness of the world. That's the idea. And I should go one step further and say the idea is predicated on the fact that you can discover what that destiny is. So what I've been doing since I launched this semi-officially last July is meeting individually with people one-on-one to help them figure out their calling, and then conducting workshops for the same reason, to help a group of people figure it out. And then it is expanded. I'm doing executive coaching now. I'm doing consulting with staffs of nonprofits and for-profit organizations. So, and it's expanding further, and keynote speaking. But the basis of is still around that idea of helping people discover their calling. That's what I've been doing.
That's awesome. And how do people, like, I receive your it might be a weekly newsletter. I receive your newsletter. And I love it. I actually you trick me every week. I think you're like personally sending me an email every week. It never fails. I'm like, Dave's writing. It's
everyone's
Dave's
getting
yeah. But how do people subscribe? How do people follow you? I know you recently created a whole brand, social media, presence. So how do people get in touch and follow?
No, the easiest way, just go to my website, destiny-works.com, and you can go there, and there's a pop-up will come up, and you actually can watch a video I made about mentoring, and then it automatically puts you on my newsletter. Or you can just email me, and I'll put your name on that's if you want to get the weekly newsletter. I should say I didn't expect that I would be doing this much writing, but I've been enjoying that aspect of what.
Yeah, it's good. I read it every week.
Yeah, and I'm going to treat it like I used to in the old days, doing a sermon series. I'm doing a whole theme around this month in my writing and all my social media stuff.
Cool.
So it's fun.
We'll put the link to Dave's website in the show notes here, so you can just check that out and click on it. Okay, so you're here, Dave, because you gave your first sermon in a year. Have you preached anywhere else, or is this just a Grace Church spent a year?
I did a virtual sermon, and I've spoken in several places, but not a pulpit stand-up pulpit sermon. This was the first one.
So you wrapped up our Tidying Up series, and you primarily talked about, the topic was Many Hands Make Light Work, and this wrapped up our series. And so,
wait, Tyler,
remember? Actually, that was
the week before.
Oh, what?
What was it?
You said many gifts make light work.
No,
that was Amy last week.
No, that was Amy.
Yeah.
All right.
So it's
material.
Do you remember how we didn't do the pod
your
last
kingdom
week?
treasures? All right. Yeah.
Yes, we were gone.
All right.
Clear out your stress with generosity was the series tagline.
Yeah. I got it.
All right. So you wrapped up our Tidying Up series, talking about the idea of storing up treasures, whether that's American treasures, as you called it, or kingdom treasures. And you kind of encouraged everybody to pursue generosity through pursuing kingdom treasures. And so can you kind of give us, if you remember the rundown of this show, first question is, can you give us the big idea of what you had to say for anybody who may not have heard the sermon last weekend?
Yeah, well, the big idea essentially centers around the idea that treasures, material treasures, by their very nature, tend to create a level of stress in us. And plus, they're temporal. They go away. We can't take them with us. And it just creates, in some cases, unnecessary stress. But as Jesus said, focus our attention on heaven's treasures, which never fade and are world changing. That is it. That's the game changer, is when we focus on heaven's treasures and not material treasures, which I labeled American treasures based on the American dream.
Yeah. And you primarily focused on Matthew chapter 6, verses 19 through 21.
Right.
And this is kind of Jesus telling us to replace, as you put it, the fixation on the material with the one on the eternal. And like you just said, you kind of defined what American treasures are. And this is the first time I've ever really, like, it's been crystallized this way for me, and it made a lot of sense. Can you kind of give us your definition of what American treasures are?
Well, and I based that off of the American dream, which is this mythical, for some people, they see it as a birthright. This is what I deserve. And other people see it as a goal. In my definition, there are lots of definitions of the American dream, but my definition is based around, I want to be security. I want to be successful, and I want to be satisfied. So I accumulate the things around me and the experiences around me that make me successful, make me secure, or make me feel secure, and make me satisfied. And that's why we have to have more stuff, because we're never really satisfied. And so anything that I add to my life that moves in the direction of the American dream, I call it American treasures. Those are the things that we treasure so that I can achieve the dream.
Mm-hmm. And then you went on to talk about kingdom treasures.
Right.
And you kind of classified these as stories or resetting our values. Can you kind of talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, heaven's treasures are things that never fade. So they're things that are eternal, and they're always going to be about people, and they're always going to be about God's will. And so I think at their simplest, heaven's treasures are the stories that essentially make God glad, and everyone in the kingdom rejoices around these treasures, which are eternal. And so investing in those stories is accumulating heaven's treasures.
Every time I've heard a sermon about this topic, and we talk about this scripture specifically, I imagine somebody sitting there either reading this or listening to it saying, and you address this in your sermon, but I imagine them saying, so what does Jesus mean? Should I not bother with like savings accounts and investments because I can't take that stuff with me? So what do we say to someone who's wondering or confused about pursuing the American dream versus stuff that we will take with us?
Well, I don't see a prohibition of wealth anywhere in the scriptures. There were wealthy followers of Jesus. Jesus would not have been able to do his ministry without wealthy followers of Jesus essentially supporting him. So there's not a prohibition on wealth. There's not a prohibition on having things that make us satisfied. There's not a prohibition on having things that make us feel secure, what did I say? Secure, satisfied, and successful.
Safe.
There's nothing wrong with that. What's wrong is when the amassing of those things take up an inordinate amount of our time and add to the level of stress in our lives that takes away from heaven's treasures. Mm-hmm. So it's not so much what you have, it's how you have it and how it affects you. That's what I pick up from the teachings of Jesus.
And just a few verses later, Jesus says, no one can serve two masters. You cannot serve God and be enslaved to money. Like you got to pick. And so I think you're right. It's not about whether you should get rid of all your money, but if you let it enslave you, then it is a problem. And if your things are enslaving you, then it's a problem.
Yeah. Cause if we're going to add up things, then somebody tell me where the line gets drawn. Where below this line is cool and above this line is bad.
Like Jesus had sandals and a cloak. He didn't have much, but he had those for sure. If he was really committed to not having stuff, he would have gotten rid of his cloak and sandals and gone around naked. But
with that, that would change the story, wouldn't it?
Then again, he also said, if someone asks for your cloak, you should give it to him. So I don't know, maybe he would have.
But I do.
So I have a friend.
Go ahead.
I have a friend who took this to an extreme. He's essentially homeless because Jesus had no place to lay his head. He floats around from couch to couch to couch because he is essentially, in his mind, trying to live like Christ. But it's good Christian people who own the homes with the couches that put him up, and so it's all in what you do with what you've been given and what you're blessed with.
Exactly. I think we all, and this is subjective. I'll admit it's subjective, and this is why it's a process of discipleship. But I think we all have a bit of a sense of what line that we cross when it is dominating my thinking or when it's causing stress. Now, it is subjective. That's not objective either, but it is. I think we know, what did Paul say? All things are permissible, but I will not be mastered by anything. And so when our acquisition tends to have an inordinate effect on our life, that's a problem.
How did people... This is like world behind the tech stuff. How did people save money back in the day? Because banks didn't exist, right?
You bought sheep or goats or a cow or something, and then it would have babies, and that was your investment account. And
they didn't have like currency back then.
They did. They had coins and stuff, and so that's what he's probably referring to. If you put your coins in a safe jar or something in your house, but then that can easily be stolen. Banking was not really a thing for the average subsistence farmer in Judea. So
I think there was the beginnings of a banking system, rudimentary banking system that was happening about that time, but it's not anything like we have today, of course, because there were, one of the prohibitions you read in the scripture is not prohibitions. One of the warnings is about lenders. And so there are people that had accumulated a certain amount of wealth that were lending it out. So there was rudimentary banking that was going on. But I mean, the thing is, when Jesus, if indeed Jesus was teaching this on the Mount, and this was the Sermon on the Mount, and his crowd essentially was addressed by the Beatitudes. The people he was looking at were generally poverty-stricken. They were generally didn't have much. They were poor in spirit. They were mourning. They were under duress. And so this was not just to rich people. This was to all humans within the sound of his voice. And so this is not an issue about wealth. This is an issue about acquisition.
I'm reminded of the parable of the talents as we're talking about, how did they save and did they have a banking system? And the parable of the talents, basically the moral of the story is that the one who took what he was given as, I guess, seed money and went and buried it and didn't do anything with it and just left it there and then brought back, here's the money. Aren't you proud of me? I didn't do anything with it. He was the one, who was scorned in the end. Yep. It's what he did not do with it versus, the other people in that parable went and, got a return on investment. So I don't know. It's just reminding me of that parable.
Yeah. This is the first time that I've heard, storing up treasures in heaven is like the churchiest thing I've ever heard. but this is the first time that kingdom treasures actually like meant something to me when you started talking about their stories of redemption. It's like things that you said a child once food insecure, now having enough to eat. That's a treasure. That's a treasure that you are. It's basically when you heal a broken place, you're storing up treasures in heaven. That was the first time I've ever thought about that. Maybe I just haven't been paying attention, but
there's a bizarre. I'm probably going to get in trouble for this and send all of your frustrations to Barry. He'll handle it. But it's nice that I can do that. Just call my son. He's lead pastor now.
Awkward.
There
silence.
is this theology that there are actual treasures will be handed when we go to heaven. And everyone's very fuzzy about what those treasures look. Sometimes they call them crowns. And there's some metaphoric statements in scripture about this. I think that's just goofy, to be honest with you. Here comes the emails. But I think that's goofy. Why do I need it in heaven? Why would I need anything? And what am I going to do with a bunch of crowns? How can more than one crown fit on my head? It's all goofy.
Well, you got infinite days to wear different crowns. So
I suppose that's it. And maybe I could change out the jewels on a regular basis.
That is a good question. How can more than one crown fit on my head?
We might have really big heads in the new creation. We don't know.
Infinite heads.
Yeah. So I agree.
Off the rails.
No, I agree, Dad. To me, it's, I always used to remember growing up, I used to hear like, oh, it was, you're going to get to heaven and you'll have a bigger mansion if you do all the things that are right. Yeah. And like, for me, it was all the good Christian things to do. You get a big mansion or maybe even 2 mansions. And I was always kind of like, I don't care about mansions. But the thing that I've come to realize, or the way that I look at it now is, and it's all very, of course, I'm spending all this time in the garden. And so of course I think about it in terms of gardening, but it's as if we are currently planting by the actions that we take in this life. We are planting seeds that will take root and sprout into the new creation in a way that I don't really understand. I mean, it's metaphorical, but there's something about the way that we live now and the stories that we're developing, the kingdom stories that we're developing, that we will see the fruit of in new creation. But it won't just be like, I don't think it'll just be like, oh, a picture on the wall. Like, oh, what a nice memory. Like, I think in some way we will experience the fruit of what we've planted in this life. Right. So we are building new creation right now, which is I don't know. There's a lot of, scripture passages that I could use to try to get into that more deeply, but it's all kind of a bit at an angle. None of it's directly saying like, here's exactly how it works, because I don't think we could understand how new creation will work, because it would probably be pan-dimensional and outside of time. And so
all of those things, essentially, if we think that heaven is out there and it's a left-hand turn from what I'm experiencing now, and besides all of this is going to burn up and go away. So I get to heaven and, I have now I'm just wearing white and I'm walking around with about 2,800 crowns on my head because it's some other place and some other, in essence, what Barry's saying is true. As we're accruing heaven's treasures, we are participating in heaven and earth, the melding of heaven and earth. And this experience we're in right now, becoming more new creation, more heaven-like. And I think the distinction between heaven and earth is an arbitrary. I think there are reasons why people make the distinction, but what's happening is and God's desire is that heaven envelops earth. The new creation envelops this creation, and that's why these treasures are so important, because they're part of the recreation of all the things.
So this is really it's a sermon about, or a message about generosity, but it's also a message about focus, because I think you're right. Like, as I'm sitting here talking to you guys, I'm thinking about Abraham, David, Solomon. Like, they all had a lot of money. They all had a lot of stuff, like a lot of wealth. And so there's nothing wrong with that. But Jesus is asking us to change our focus and our attitudes about those things. And if my focus and heart's affection is on American treasures, that's where my energy will be. And then all of a sudden my problem is possibly my wealth and my money. But if I'm truly seeking his kingdom, then it's evident in how I give to other people or serve other people. And that's kind of the essence I think it's a message about focus.
I will say one opinion though, my opinion. Yeah. Even though I agree, there's nothing wrong or sinful about wealth or being wealthy. My opinion and what I've seen in this world is that it is much harder for someone with wealth to not be ruled by that wealth. It takes much more energy and effort to set aside the demands of wealth than it is to not have wealth. So I'm not saying it's worse or better. I'm just saying, I'm kind of quoting Jesus. It is harder for a rich man to enter the kingdom of heaven than for a camel to get through an eye of a needle. Because the more you have, the more it will demand of you. And to have great wealth with to have a really huge house, but to be okay not having a security system. I'm not suggesting security systems are wrong, but if you're going to buy a really amazing house with a ton of stuff in it, you're probably going to want a security system. And if you're going to want a security system, you're going to want to make sure that you've got whatever, all the things. It's it's just more tempting for the more wealth you have. So I think the most satisfied wealthy people I've known are the ones that are the most extravagantly generous, that are constantly giving away what they have, that are seeking for ways to invest what they have in others. And for whatever reason, they keep getting blessed and more abundance is poured out on them. And they just keep trying to outdo God and they keep giving. Those are the wealthy people that are satisfied and are not under the control of money. I'm just saying it's difficult.
Well, and Barry, we need to go back to the reason why we did this series in the first place. And the working title for my sermon was about stress reduction or unloading stress. And that's really the point. And you're right on. With everything I add to my life, my stress goes up. If I'm going to experience some soul healing or tidying up of my soul, I've got to find ways to reduce my stress. I think wealthy people who are constantly giving things away are essentially reducing their stress more and more and more as they give it away. So I agree 100%.
Maren, as I'm listening to the sermon, you are on my mind.
Yes, Tyler. How come? Whatever do you mean?
You've stricken me as Queen just in case. Since I've gotten to know you.
You texted us something, a clip from the app notes, and you were like, forgive me, Father, for I have sinned, or something like that. Because you were feeling a little
oh my
guilty.
goodness.
Because you had 7 cartons of coffee creamer or something.
Yeah, it's been a great source of stress for my husband. So you see, what happened was my lactose-free half and half, I can't find it at my local Walmart anymore. And so I did find it at Meijer, but they're always out of it. So when I see it, I pretty much buy all of it, just in case I can't, just in case I'm not able to find it. And so Dave, when you said stop stockpiling your stockpile of stuff that you think you need to feel safe and satisfied, I came
Maren
home,
dumping the cream down the sink.
And took a picture of all 5 of my creamers and sent it to Tyler and Barry because I'm stockpiling my stockpile of stuff so I can feel safe, because what if they run out again?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Yeah.
What if they do?
So, but this is like you, right? So how did this make you feel?
I am queen just in case. I am. And I will say there's an element of it that convicted me because I am queen just in case. Mm-hmm. And I'll be transparent and vulnerable. We take spiritual gifts assessments every now and then. Generosity is never a high one for me. There are lots of other high ones. I won't say what they are, but that's never in my entire adult life been one of the higher values or whatever characteristics of me. It is of Jed.
Yeah.
But it hasn't been of me. And I think the difference is I have a fear of scarcity, you know? And so we give, you know, we give, but where I would give, you know, I don't know, $50, Jed would give like $250. Like that's the difference between us, where I'm like, I'll give, but just enough. And Jed will give more cheerfully because he doesn't have that fear of scarcity that I have. And I could, you know, go back into my life story of why I feel that way and what made me that way. But I don't like that about myself. I don't like that I am that, you know, constantly fearful. So I better hold on to everything that's mine because I might lose it someday. Like, I don't like that about me. But sermons like this one are like that spiritual chiropractic adjustment that I need to take a look at how I am managing my resources. Yeah. And am I just stockpiling my stockpile? Am I doing that? It's so easy for me to slip into that mode. Or am I actually being a good steward of what I have and using it for the kingdom and storing up kingdom treasures? How am I doing that?
That's really interesting. I think what you're getting at, Marion, is that this isn't just this storing up treasures on earth is not just a matter of like greed and acquisitiveness. It's also can be a matter of a scarcity mindset and fear. And in both cases, it's the same outcome. That reminds me of, I think maybe I might be more on the side. I don't really stockpile, but there was a time in my journey with money when I was living in Nairobi, and I'm sure I've talked about this before, but during my year in 2005 in Kenya, where I lived in this new tiny little apartment right down basically the entrance to the apartment complex, the big high gates with the barbed wire, like to get in there. And it was not a nice apartment, just so you're aware, but it was nicer than the slum that was right at the entrance to this apartment complex. And so I would walk through the entrance to a slum every time I went back to this apartment. And I was there for 3 or 4 months. And I was given a very small stipend. I mean, we're talking like, I don't know, a couple $100 a month or something, but I was literally paralyzed and incapable of using that money for anything. I vividly remember, I was really struggling. I vividly remember picking up a bunch of bananas at the grocery store and then putting them back because I didn't want to spend the money on bananas. And so I was eating like white bread and peanut butter, and that's all I was eating. It was a complete poverty mindset. It was a scarcity mindset. I was acting as if, if God, if I didn't, whatever, if God couldn't care for me and for them, it was all very poverty minded. And what I realized at one point though, I looked in my closet in my little apartment in Kenya, which had no furniture whatsoever. I looked in my closet and there was this stack of cash, for months of not spending any. And I wasn't giving it away. I wasn't investing it in the kingdom. I was just sitting there. I was stockpiling this money because I was paralyzed out of scarcity. And so it's a little different than, 5 half and halves, but at the same time, like I can resonate with what you're saying. And that began a journey for me where I had to really work on breaking free of that mindset of poverty, because it wasn't turning me into a generous person. It was turning me into just a miserable miser. So anyway.
Yeah, this is good. It's been a good series. It's gotten us to ask a lot of questions like, what do we care about? What are the things that control our lives? How do we clear that out? What are we drawn to? What are the things that we fear losing? That kind of stuff. So it's been a really good series, and I really appreciate going through it with Grace Church. It's been a good experience. Dave, thanks for giving us the sermon. I know you got to go. Barry, what are we doing next?
Well, we're doing something a little different, probably a lot different. We are going to be starting a new sermon series about the book of Micah. It's a prophetic book in the Old Testament, and I think it's going to be really interesting. Micah has a way of afflicting the comfortable and comforting the afflicted, and I think it's going to speak to us in some big ways. So we'll kick that off this weekend.
All right. Dave, thanks for joining us. I know you're busy. You're doing something actually right now. You're like walking into an engagement. So yep. I know you got to go. So if you want to follow Dave, go to destinyworks-works.com.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And you can get connected with him. And Dave, looking forward to next time we get to talk to you. Thanks
you
for being
Thanks
here.
for having me. See ya.
All right. So we're doing Micah next week.
Yep.
Starting next week. And Maren, you're making an appearance this sermon series, right?
I'm supposed to.
How's that coming?
Yeah, it's coming up fast.
All right, good.
Memorial Day weekend, I think, is the weekend I'm scheduled to preach. And I'm excited because it's Micah, guys. It's Micah.
It's Micah. Friends of the pod, can you guess what verse I assigned for Maren to preach about?
Yeah.
You want to know what it is? I'll tell you. I'll tell you right now. You ready for this? Micah 6:8, do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with your God.
Yeah. So when we first started this podcast,
that was a perfect way to end the podcast, Tyler. You're going to start a new conversation. Come on, man.
Well, when I first started this podcast, I really thought you made that up.
What?
For months. I was like, man, that's really creative.
Oh my gosh.
And so I'm excited to hear what you
might
have
even say inspired. That's so funny.
I was like, wow, that is really good. That's a great sign off. Good thinking, Maren. And,
wow.
Nope.
Wow.
Nope. It's the Bible.
So, yeah. So that's what, in 2 weeks?
Oh, please. I really hope it's longer than 2 weeks.
It's
dear Lord.
4-week series. She's the 4th week.
Okay, good. So we'll look forward to that. But Maren, now can you?
Okay, sure, fine. Do justly, love mercy. I didn't make this up. Walk humbly with your God. It's in the Bible.
We'll see you on the other side of Sunday.